Welcome to Masterpiece Mishaps. This show is dedicated to bringing you the moments in gaming that for one reason or another failed to deliver. Today's moment comes from Final Fantasy 15. This video contains spoilers for Final Fantasy 15 as well as Final Fantasy 7, so if you've not yet played those games, please come check out this video once you've done so. Without further ado, here's our Masterpiece Mishap.
Now, about that ring. On second thought, you let him have it.
To understand why this scene fails, we first have to understand the characters involved. The first character is Lunafreya, the Oracle... not that Oracle. Think like a Mother Teresa type. She goes around and heals the sick and inspires hope.
Let us begin at once.
The guy doing the staring is Noctis, Luna's fiancé and the main playable character of Final Fantasy 15. Noctis begins the game as the prince of the Kingdom of Lucis, but after his father's death at the hands of the Niflheim Empire, Noctis becomes a king without a kingdom.
And that means we go back to Insomnia.
Might not be safe for us there.
Might not be safe for us here.
The third person in this scene is Ardyn, and like a lot of Final Fantasy characters, he's got a really confusing backstory.
And what's your story? I'm an impatient traveler, ready to turn ship.
The basics are he's immortal, he used to be a king, Noctis' ancestors kicked him out, and he's mad about it.
A man of no consequence.
So why does this scene fail? If this scene is done well, two things should happen. One, the player should feel some sense of loss at Luna's death. And two, perhaps more importantly, this sense of loss should be redirected as anger towards the villain of the game, Ardyn. This moment fails because the game never invites the player to become emotionally attached to Luna. It's very difficult to believe that there's an actual relationship between her and the main characters of the game. Take Noctis, for instance, the man she's supposed to marry. Noctis and Luna knew each other as children, but they haven't seen each other in 12 years, and their entire engagement feels more like a business relationship than anything else.
Of course. Simple formality.
One of those symbol of the peace deals.
So it's more like a marriage of convenience.
Her ladyship seems nevertheless amenable to the prospect.
And Noct here likes the idea.
Because nothing says, I want to marry that girl, like... The only further information we actually get about Luna is through short clips of her curing people. These scenes emphasize what a good person Luna is, but do nothing to further that she has an actual real relationship with Noctis. After Luna's death, the game shows you one of the most visually gorgeous scenes you will ever see in a video game.
Would that I could join you. But this moment will have to be enough.
In this scene, Noctis must say goodbye to Luna, and it becomes apparent how distraught her death makes him.
Farewell, dear Noctis.
The problem is that this entire scene feels forced. As a player, we haven't really gotten the opportunity to get to know Luna, so Luna's death is sad, but it's sad in the same way that a stranger's death is sad, as opposed to something like a family member's. To further these problems, the game also spends a good chunk of time letting Noctis run around with Gladio's sister, Iris.
They went to see the sights. We should too.
While the player never actually gets to experience any interaction between Noctis and the Oracle, the player does experience a relationship between Noctis and Iris.
You know, Noct, this almost feels like a date.
The player gets the opportunity to get to know Iris and realize that she's more dynamic than just being Gladio's sister. Luna, on the other hand, is always just the Oracle. Sure, she's strong and determined, but we never see any more depth to her character. Now, in many ways, Final Fantasy XV is one big giant callback to every Final Fantasy that has come before it. This moment in particular feels like a callback to another Final Fantasy death. This scene from Final Fantasy VII shows Aerith, or Eris, being murdered by the main villain Sephiroth. Now, once again, a huge difference between these scenes and these characters is that Final Fantasy VII gave us plenty of time and opportunity for both Cloud and the player to become emotionally attached to Aerith. Even with no voice acting, Aerith's personality shines through, and we get to know what she's like. As a result, our sense of loss is redirected at the game's antagonist, and it makes the fight against Sephiroth much more personal. If anything, this moment would have been so much more powerful had Ardyn killed Iris instead of Luna. This scene, and thus the animosity between player and villain, would become so much more personal. Is Ardyn still a bad guy? Of course he is, he just murdered a woman. But that woman was a stranger, not family.